Hi, I'm Jim Hubbard, Director of White Door Consulting. We're here at Henry Stewart's Creative Operations, which is the first time it's run in London, and we're talking about the strategies and ideas around creative ops. I'm here with Justin Bairamian, who's the leader of BBC Creative, which is responsible for all of the BBC's marketing output. It's award-winning. It was set up 2 years ago, and it's doing very well. I'd like to ask you, one of the things that you talked about earlier was attracting Aidan and Laurent to the BBC as creative directors. Now they're multiple award winning, they've been responsible for some of the most famous campaigns in the UK, and they've come from what is probably the best agency in the UK. How did you manage to persuade them to jump ship from their agency environment to an in-house agency?
Yeah, so I think what helped us is I think there's a bit of dissatisfaction with the classic agency model. So I think people like Aidan and Laurent are interested in in-house creativity overall. And then the fantastic thing we have above the door is the BBC, and it's at the centre of British culture. There's a massive variety of brands and projects that we can offer people. So that's what attracted them, is the idea of trying something new, a startup environment, and within an organisation like the BBC.
Great, okay. So, one of the truths about creatives, one of the perceived truths about creatives, is that you need a variety of work, a variety of brands and businesses to work on to keep your mind fresh. How do you overcome that with your creative team, who are just working for one company, really?
One company, but lots of different brands and lots of different projects. So we can lurch from Christmas on BBC One to a brand film for BBC Three to the World Cup to a campaign about female empowerment. And so there's massive variety both within our brand portfolio, but also within the types of projects we're doing. So I think that always keeps people interested.
So although it's one organisation, they're working with different teams, different parts of the business, and therefore there is variety.
Yeah.
So they do get that.
Yeah.
Great, okay. And now the other thing I thought was really interesting in your part of the presentation was that you were talking about how at times there'd been a push, both from creative and from marketing, to introduce the role of account management. Now, you decided against that, and for me what's interesting about that is that I know in your career for some time you were very senior in account management, so that's interesting that with that background you chose not to have that role in your organisation.
Yeah, and I think there've been debates about the role of account management for a long time in the industry, and I think clients are looking for more access to the creative talent. And we alluded to Mark Pritchard from P&G talking about project management getting in the way, and I think it's not necessarily about project management, but I can understand in a world where you have account management, project management, producers, planners and creatives, why from a client perspective it gets very complex. So I think what I wanted to do was to set up what I needed in order to facilitate the best work, and what I felt I needed was project management, not account management. Not someone developing the business, because we're not a commercial business, and not someone managing the relationship, because we're not in a client-supplier environment. We're in an environment where we're trying to be colleagues working together to a common aim, so yeah.
So, and one of the things you talked about was the fact that today you're actually working on the vast majority, if not all, the work for BBC. Virtually none of it is going out to external agencies. So you obviously don't need account management to win that. You're winning it, on the strength of the work? Strength
of the work, and I guess a trust that's built up between the teams, but also a sense that you've got the marketers orchestrating the campaigns from a strategic point of view, you've got the project managers orchestrating it from a process point of view, and you've got creatives free to do their best work. And that's what people are looking for, and I think to create another layer of relationship management in there just wouldn't be right.
No, okay. Now, thinking about what you've done, you've done this within 2 years. But think about other businesses. What do you think the tripwires might be for businesses that are considering setting up in-house creative and creative operations?
I guess a couple of things I think we've done right that have helped us. One is having a very clear vision for what we wanted to create. I think it's quite easy as an independent agency to have a very clear sense of what you're about,
yes.
Because you can do that and you're independent and clients come to you because of who you are.
Yes.
I think in a big organisation like the BBC, it's quite easy to get blown off course by the realities of a big, complex, slightly bureaucratic structure.
Yes.
So I think that was one key thing. And I think the other thing is something we decided very early on, which is we were going to be part of the BBC, but we were going to agitate on behalf of the audience. I think big organisations can be more organisationally focused than audience focused at times, and you see some missteps as a result. And I think we have worked very hard to avoid that, and it means we challenge probably a bit more than people like at times, but it means that ultimately we're answerable to the audience, and because the audience pays the licence fee, that's a good place to be.
Yes, absolutely. And just looking at the future, what do you think the challenges for creative operations are going to be in the industry in general, as opposed
I think
to
just the speed of change. It's the speed of change. I mean, we've set up a classic creative ops process, haven't we?
Yes.
Really, that you know the principles of which have probably been true for the last 10 or 15 years' time. But I think where we're headed is data, personalisation, real-time marketing, AI. You know, all those sorts of things, and what that means for the way we create marketing is really interesting, and will require our creative ops to keep pace with that, if not lead it. So I think it's just, you know, you're saying creative ops never starts. It never stops. Rather, you need to keep evolving it. And what we can't do is step back and say we've got the right process. It's like we constantly need to go in there and say how does it need to change. So that's, I think, the biggest challenge.
Yes.